Los Angeles, March 9, 1997. The City of Angels wore a veneer of glamour that night, a glittering skin stretched taut over a body of simmering tension. From the Shrine Auditorium, the echoes of the Soul Train Music Awards were still vibrating in the warm air. Inside, under the cavernous ceiling and the blinding glare of chandeliers, the gods of hip-hop had held court. Among them, a king. Christopher George Lat or Wallace, a mountain of a man known to the world as the Notorious B.I.G, or Biggie Smalls. At 24, he was the undisputed sovereign of the East Coast. His debut album, Ready to Die, wasn't just a record, it was a seismic event, a quadruple platinum testament to a life lived in the brutal, unforgiving crucible of Brooklyn streets. In 3 weeks, its successor, the ominously titled Life After Death, would drop, and the industry buzz was a palpable hum. But for Biggie, the dream he once rhymed about had curdled into a waking nightmare. The paranoia that laced his lyrics, "I see death around the corner, gotta stay high while I survive," was no longer just a metaphor. It was his reality. He moved through the backstage throng, his hefty frame a commanding presence even amidst the stars. Draped in an impeccably tailored champagne-colored suit, a Cuban cigar nestled between his thick fingers, he was the picture of success. But his eyes, often crinkled with a contagious laugh, held a weary vigilance. His entourage shone, Puffy Combs, the young, ambitious maestro of Bad Boy Records, Lil Cease, his loyal junior-grade lieutenant, and a phalanx of security formed a protective orbit around him. The air was thick with more than just cigar smoke. The East Coast-West Coast rap war, a media-fueled feud that had metastasized into something deadly, hung over the event like a shroud. It had been 6 months since the drive-by shooting in Las Vegas that killed Tupac Shakur. 6 months of whispered accusations, veiled threats, and blatant taunts. Biggie had publicly denied any involvement in the Quad Studio shooting that had left Tupac wounded and embittered in 1994, but in the court of hip-hop opinion, denials were feeble things. Death threats arrived with the same frequency as fan mail. Los Angeles was enemy territory, the domain of Suge Knight and his formidable Death Row Records empire. Every unfamiliar face in the crowd was a potential threat, every slowing car, a potential assassin. The after-party was at the Peterson Automotive Museum on Wilshire Boulevard, a temple of chrome and polished steel hosted by Vibe magazine. The convoy of black SUVs snaked its way from the shrine into the heart of the city. Inside the museum, the scene was a kaleidoscope of fame and fortune. Will Smith held court, Aaliyah laughed with friends, and moguls rubbed shoulders with gangsters. Crips and Bloods, their colors muted by designer suits, navigated the same crowded room, a tense, unspoken truce holding for the night. Biggie held his own court, a gravitational center in the swirling galaxy of celebrities. He schmoozed, laughed, accepted congratulations, but the tension never left his shoulders. He was performing. Later, witnesses would speak of a specific, unsettling moment. A fire alarm blared, piercing the thumping bass of the music. The building was evacuated onto the sidewalk, a confused, chattering herd of the rich and famous under the LA stars. Some would later claim it was a deliberate act, a strategic clearing of the deck. An omen. The party, spooked, began to break up early. Around 12:30 a.m., Biggie decided to leave. He was staying at a house in the hills, not a hotel, a decision meant to add a layer of security. The plan was for a 3-car convoy, Puff Daddy in the lead vehicle, Biggie in the middle, and another SUV trailing. Biggie climbed into the passenger seat of a green, leased GMC Suburban. His trusted bodyguard, Greg G. Money Young, was in the driver's seat. Lil Cease and other members of the Junior Mafia were in the back. The vehicles pulled out onto Fairfax Avenue, a wide, well-lit boulevard that was far from deserted. They were heading for the 10 freeway. At the intersection of Fairfax and Wilshire, they stopped for a red light. The night was clear. The Suburban stereo was playing Biggie's own latest single, the irresistibly funky Hypnotize. He was nodding his head to the beat, perhaps unwinding for the first time that night. Then, a vehicle. A dark Chevy Impala SS, a common muscle car in LA, but this one felt different. It glided up on the Suburban's right-hand side, its movements deliberate, smooth. The passenger side window descended. Inside the Impala, a man. He was later described as a young black man, wearing a suit and a distinctive bow tie, an image that would burn itself into the memory of a few terrified witnesses and become the central, haunting ghost of the investigation. He leaned out, his body a silhouette against the city lights. In his hands, a 9mm blue steel Glock, a professional's weapon. He didn't spray bullets wildly. He aimed. The muzzle flashed, once, twice, a staccato rhythm that was utterly alien against the backdrop of Hypnotize. Pop, 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 pop. 6 shots. Precise. Economical. Deadly. The Suburban's window exploded. Bullets tore through the thin metal of the door. One round struck Biggie in the left arm. Another ripped into his hip. A third tore through his thigh. The fourth was the kill shot. It entered his right side, tore through his colon, liver, heart, and left lung, and lodged in his left arm. The music stopped. The world shrank to the metallic smell of blood and the deafening silence after the gunfire. Biggie slumped forward. G-Money panicked, slammed his foot on the accelerator. The Suburban lurched through the red light, tires screeching, leaving the Impala to melt back into the endless stream of LA traffic. "Cease. I'm shot." Biggie gasped, his voice a wet, ragged thing. Lil Cease in the back, frozen in shock, could only watch as his friend, his mentor, bled out. The drive to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center was a frantic, surreal nightmare. They carried his massive, limp body into the emergency room, but it was already over. The King of New York, the poet of the projects, was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. The dream was over. The call reached Detective Russell Poole of the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division at 2 a.m. Poole was a cop's cop, methodical, dogged, and with a mind that connected dots others missed. He had worked the periphery of the Tupac Shakur investigation and had warned his superiors that the Coastal War would claim another life. As he sped towards the scene, the flashing lights painting the night in streaks of red and blue, he turned to his new partner, the sharp and ambitious Detective Greg Kading. "This is retaliation," Poole said, his voice grim. "Mark my words. Suge Knight's fingerprints are all over this." The intersection of Wilshire and Fairfax was a circus of chaos. Uniformed officers held back a growing crowd of onlookers and reporters. Forensics technicians moved like ghosts under the harsh glare of portable lights, their eyes fixed on the ground, collecting the only physical evidence they would ever get. 6 9mm shell casings glinting on the asphalt. The Gecko brand ammunition was rare, a detail that whispered, "professional hit." There were witnesses, but their stories were fragmented, fearful. A dark Impala. A man in a bow tie. Then, nothing. The car had vanished into the city's vast, anonymous veins. Poole began constructing a profile of the victim, and it read like one of his own songs. Christopher Wallace, born May 21, 1972, to Jamaican immigrants in Brooklyn. Raised by his hard-working mother, Valletta, in Clinton Hill. A bright kid who turned to crack dealing by 12, his size and wit making him a natural on the streets. Arrests, jail time, and then, a demo tape that found its way to Puff Daddy. Ready to Die was a masterpiece of narrative rap, a brutally honest and cinematic journey from the bottom to the top. But the top was a lonely and dangerous place. His friendship with Tupac had shattered after the Quad Studios incident, fracturing the hip-hop world in two. The early leads all pointed west, towards death row. Informants from the tangled gang alliances of South Central whispered the same name, Southside Crips. The word was that Suge Knight, from his prison cell where he was serving time for a parole violation related to the Tupac assault, had greenlit a hit for revenge. The shooter was rumored to be a man named Wardell Poochie Faust, a known Southside Crip enforcer. The man in the passenger seat, the one who matched the bow tie description, was allegedly a Nation of Islam affiliate and death row associate named Amir Muhammad, also known as Harry Billups. Poole tracked down Poochie for an interrogation. The man was smug, unflappable. "I ain't no Biggie from Big Bird," he sneered, offering a rock-solid alibi. But the whispers persisted. A jailhouse snitch claimed Poochie had bragged, Suge paid 13 grand for the job. The lead went cold, Then colder still when Poochie was killed in a drive-by shooting in Compton in 2003, a convenient silencing. It was Detective Kading who began to peel back a more disturbing layer. His investigation kept circling back to the LAPD itself. Two names emerged: Officer David Mack and his partner, Rafael Perez. Mack was a sharp, ambitious cop with a dark side and expensive tastes. He also, curiously, owned a black Chevy Impala SS, the same make and model as the getaway car. Rafael Perez would later become the central figure in the Rampart scandal, a massive corruption case that revealed a crew of crash community resources against street hoodlums, officers who were allegedly robbing, framing, and even shooting people. The connections were too coincidental to ignore. Mack and Perez had deep ties to death row records through off-duty security work. They partied at the label's events. They were seen as cool cops by the gangsters. Was the LAPD not just incompetent in solving this case, but actively complicit? Was the hit orchestrated with police involvement? Or was there a cover-up to protect the department's dirty secrets? Poole became obsessed. He followed the thread, writing a fervent memo to his superiors outlining a theory of police corruption and a conspiracy to murder Christopher Wallace. He was met with stonewalling, hostility, and finally, a demotion. The message was clear: stop digging. In 1999, a frustrated and disillusioned Russell Poole resigned from the force, taking his theories public with a book that named names and pointed fingers directly at his own department. While the official investigation stalled, another force for justice emerged from the grief: Violetta Wallace. The petite, dignified schoolteacher who had raised her son alone, who had prayed he would escape the streets, became a warrior. In 2000, she filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles and the LAPD, alleging a massive cover-up to protect officers involved in her son's murder. The civil trial was a revelation. It was forced into the open evidence that had been buried by the criminal investigation. Informant statements naming David Mack and Amir Mohammed were read into the record. The theory of a gangland hit facilitated by corrupt cops was laid bare for a jury. The trial ended in a mistrial in 2005, but the city, perhaps fearing what a second trial would uncover, settled with the Wallace family for $1.1 million. It was not an admission of guilt, but it was a tacit acknowledgement that something had gone terribly, systemically wrong. In the absence of facts, fiction and conspiracy bloomed in the shadows. The story grew more complex, more layered with each passing year. Some theories pointed the finger back at Puff Daddy. Rumors swirled of $1 million bounty he had placed on Suge Knight and Tupac, a hit that may have been flipped back onto Biggie. In 2011, a man named Dexter Isaac confessed to the 1994 Quad Studios shooting of Tupac, claiming on allhiphop.com that he was paid $2,500 by James "Jimmy Henchman" Rosemond, an associate of Diddy, to carry out the robbery. Diddy vehemently denied it, but the stain remained. Let us imagine for a moment a shadow narrative that blends all these threads. In this version, there is a puppet master, a mogul we'll call Victor Slade, a composite of the industry's most ruthless traits. Slade sees the rap war not as a tragedy, but as a business opportunity. Chaos is a ladder. He orchestrates tension between his two biggest assets, then eliminates them both, monopolizing the genre and becoming its eternal kingmaker. In this fiction, Slade meets the devout but financially desperate Amir Mohammed in a backroom of a Compton mosque. Biggie is talking peace, Slade says, sliding a thick envelope across a table. Peace is bad for business. He's a liability. Mohammed, seeing a way out of his debts and believing he is serving a twisted form of justice, agrees. The night of March 9th unfolds. The fire alarm is no accident, it's a signal. The Impala, driven by the corrupt cop David Mack, tails the convoy from the museum. At the light, Mohammed fires the 6 precise shots. They flee to a safe house where the Impala is immediately torched, its ashes scattering its secrets to the wind. The rogue detective Poole, in this fictional tale, manages to tail Slade to a Bel Air mansion. A break-in yields a cryptic ledger, CW elimination, $25,000. A chase ensues down the winding roads of Mulholland Drive, ending with Poole's car crashing and flipping. He survives, but his evidence is destroyed. Kading picks up the mantle, confronting a smug Diddy-like figure in a penthouse overlooking Manhattan. "You funded it. You killed your own artist." The mogul just smirks. Hip-hop is a game, detective. And in every game, there are losers who have to die. A physical altercation ensues. Kading escapes with his life, but the digital recordings of the confession are mysteriously erased from his device. Back in reality, the case remains cold. In 2006, Greg Kading, now a retired detective, joined a federal task force reinvestigating the murders of both Tupac and Biggie. He interviewed a key figure from the Tupac case, a man named Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, who strongly implied a tit-for-tat symmetry. "We did Pac, they did Big." But without corroborating evidence, it led nowhere. The years turned into decades. Documentaries, books, and podcasts dissected every angle. In 2018, the USA Network series Unsolved dramatized the investigations, publicly pointing the finger at Amir Muhammad and Poochie. Valletta Wallace watched it all, her call for justice unwavering. In 2021, a retired detective named Phil Carson claimed to have seen suppressed FBI documents pointing to Diddy's involvement. Diddy sued for defamation. The recent raids on Diddy's homes in 2024 in connection with other serious allegations have only revived the old rumors. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, alleged that Diddy knew of specific threats against Biggie in LA but did nothing to enhance his security. Faith Evans, Biggie's widow, speaks in documentaries, her eyes still holding a profound sadness decades later. "Chris deserved better," she says, a simple statement that speaks volumes. "He deserved to see his children grow up. He deserved to enjoy his success." And so, the mystery endures. Was it a straightforward gangland retaliation? A murder orchestrated by a rival mogul? A hit facilitated by corrupt police officers covering their own crimes? Or something even darker, a government hit aimed at silencing a powerful black voice that spoke truth to power? Los Angeles's boulevards hold their secrets tight. The Peterson Automotive Museum still stands. The green Suburban, a morbid relic, was reportedly crushed into a cube of metal, its bullet-holed door destroyed, as if someone wanted to bury the evidence forever. Yet, fans still make pilgrimages to the intersection, playing "Sky's the Limit" on portable speakers, paying homage to a life cut short. Biggie's legacy is immense. Over 17 million albums sold posthumously, an induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, his lyrics studied in universities. He achieved the immortality he perhaps foresaw. But justice? Justice remains a ghost rhyme, an unfinished verse in the epic poem of his life. It echoes down the years, a question forever hanging in the LA smog. Who killed the Notorious B.I.G.?